In Toronto, really, it's 1:30. Wow, okay. Hey, Finland. Hey, Ireland. Hey, Malaysia. Nice to have you join. I just want to point that out, that this is there and you can use it. And that is when you go to my channel, down here you have a community section, and I use this in recent weeks more and more. For example, I informed about the live stream. I also did a little survey about which is better, the weekdays or the weekends to do the live stream. Birthday post in here. I talked about my new studio light, so you can get some information in here. And you can also, of course, give me feedback about different things. So this is a good place. The only thing I don't like about the community section is you can write something and I can answer, but then you can't answer anymore for some reason. They closed that. I don't know why. But you, of course, can write a second comment. It gets a bit messy, but yeah. What's the chat saying? What's the difference between Affinity Photo versus beta? The beta is just like a version that is not officially out. They are still testing features in the beta, so you get newer features, but they might be unstable. So you can decide, do I want to have a stable program but not the newest features in there, or do I want to have the risk of having a software is crashing more often, but I get some newer features, I can test them out, I can get feedback on, I can give feedback on that in studio, in the forums. Well, I don't know what I'm talking right now. So that's the difference between the official version and the beta version. How to change a raster image into a vector image. You already asked me that in the comments under my video, and I actually answered that. I hope, because I think sometimes my comments are vanishing for some reason. I don't know why. In Affinity Photo itself, there is no technical way to automatically turn an image into a vector image. So like tracing the image to make it vector, that is not possible in Affinity Photo. You can do it by hand with curves, but that is very time intensive, and you should rather do that in Affinity Designer. But there are websites where you can do that. They convert it automatically for you. Some do it for free, some do it for a certain amount of money. So go online and search for that and figure out what kind of service is best for you and what results do you actually like from these different kind of things that are offered by the pages. So yeah, it's technically possible, of course, and hopefully Affinity or Affinity Photo, Affinity Designer will include it sometime soon. I don't know. I've never heard them talk about that kind of topic. Is there a tool for wide angle image correction in Affinity similar to Fisheye Hemi? I don't know actually if there is. For Fisheye, I don't know. You have lens correction, but for some reason it only works on RAW pictures, not on JPEGs, and you have to go into the develop persona to be able to use that. But there, and on the Affinity website, you can find a list of supported lenses. So maybe Fisheye is also in there. Probably. I mean, that's like text warping in Illustrator. You can do text warping in Affinity Designer, warping around shapes and around circles, and also in text boxes. And you have a flow. No, the flow is actually not in Affinity Designer. The flow is in Affinity Publisher. But of course, you can have text boxes. And shapes can also be text boxes, by the way. I made a video about. Did I make a video about that? I think so. Yeah, I did. Okay. I can't do Affinity Photo for iPad tutorials because I don't have an iPad. So yeah, and it would be at the moment not really useful to buy an iPad just for the tutorials. Especially, first of all, because the things mostly work the same in Affinity Desktop as far as I've been told, and also because of the cost of an iPad. But when the channel gets bigger, maybe I will buy an iPad and then do tutorials on there. That is a good question from Yadava. How do you decide that an illustration? I say how do you decide that an artwork is finished, like a photography or like a illustration or a music piece or whatever you do in your creative process? There's two answers to that. The first answer is it actually is never finished, because art is any kind of creative process is a growing process, and there is no finishing points in there, because everything you do is the journey of learning on one side to get better, on the other side who you actually are, what you actually want to do. But the other point is it is finished when you think it's finished. And by that, I mean when you feel like you have done enough for that piece and you want to move on to the next piece. And you say it's not perfect, it's never perfect, but you have spent enough time on that and you go on to the next point. And there's a big value, there's a very big value in finishing things even if they are not good, because you can look back at them and you build up a collection of works, and you can go back and look at them and say, I did this good and I did this bad and I want to go in this direction, or I learned something from the pieces that I've created over the last years. It's very important to finish the works. It's not so important if they are good or bad at that moment. So the frequency is much more important than the density. Is that the right word? Like how good the works are. You of course should always try to get better or work at certain things. But for example, a lot of things that I do is I just note it down. I just make a sketch. I just write the artistic idea and that's that. And then I can get back to that like half a year later and work on that idea or not. But I have a huge collection of hundreds of ideas that I can just look up in my notebooks. And that's a good starting point, and then thousands of sketches and stuff like that. So yeah, photography do and don'ts. Visual language is interesting to think about that, because, and maybe this is an interesting thing about do and don'ts with photography. Photography is a medium that we experience very immediately because it's very similar to the way that we see the world with our eyes. So people have a certain experience on how they look at the world. And of course, this way they look at the world is different in different cultures. But what it means for you as a photographer is that there is a visual language and a visual grammar, basically, that you can use to either go with that or go against it to create meaning in your work, so people understand what they are looking at or what you want to say in the work or how you want to make them feel, stuff like that.